this meeting of the Durham Board of Selectmen to order on May 10th, 2022. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All board members are present. Any amendments to the agenda? All right. Reports, Fire Chief, Road Commissioner. See, Fire Chief is not here tonight. Correct. And Alvin, did you have a report to submit tonight, or
just the energy report?
Okay, we'll talk about that more. And we also have John Talbot here from the planning board to come on up. John is the new chair of the planning board, and he's going to give us a little update on what's going on there.
Well, yeah, I appreciate the time, Mr. Chair and gentlemen. I thought it would be good if to open up or continue the flow of information between the planning board and the selectmen. So if it works out and if there's something to talk to Mitch about coming in the first meeting, your first meeting of the month, which follows our regular meeting, and just give you 2 minutes on what's happening, what's before the board and what's going on and what we're hearing. So I will take my 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes to do that. So as Kevin said, I was elected the chair at our last meeting and replacing Ann Torregosa. And Ann, those of you know her, she's been on the planning board for a chunk of time and has done a superb job. So we kind of want to publicly thank her for the work she's done in getting the town through a lot of different ordinances and projects and so on and so forth. And then the other thing I want to thank is that some of the new guys that we've got on board, George, the planner, has been a big addition, big plus over the last couple of meetings and keeping it straight and making sure we're staying on track. And then a minor thing, and he's sitting back there, I was like, him a big head, but your new IT hires that are superb. I mean, they've made a big difference, just one, getting me on the town email, which I struggle to do, but also getting things posted, getting meetings recorded. They've been a big addition. So, and we're looking forward to working with Alan, your new guy. So I had a chance to meet him the other day. So we have one application before us now, is a 13-lot cluster subdivision that is, if it's approved, will go in right down the road, just past the school, across Route 9 from Patriots Way, and kind of a narrow entrance in, and then opens up in there. It's a cluster, and then for those who are familiar with that, what a cluster subdivision does is it allows, assuming this is all approved, it allows a trade-off, sort of 1 acre of lot size given up for 1 acre of open space, or 15,000 open space for 15,000 lot size reduction. And so that's what they've come in and asked to do. We had a sketch plan meeting at the beginning of the month. We asked them, recommended they make some changes to that sketch plan, which they've done. And they weren't big things, just kind of make sure we clarified them. The sketch plan is very informal. That is just sit there, talk about what needs to be in the plan as it moves forward to get approval, if they get approval, and there's no formal vote or whatever. So the next step is this Thursday, and you're all invited at 5 p.m. We're meeting here, the planning board, the developer, and the public is all aware of this. And we're going to kind of review the new plan quickly, so I need to take that plan that's on the board down, because that's the old plan. Go over that, and then we're going to do the sidewalk. And the next step after that, depending on the speed at which the developer moves, the applicant moves, will be a preliminary plan, and that's much more detailed, probably preach to the choir, so I don't mean insult you, then final plan. That's all at the pace of the developer, and assuming they get approval, that we approve their preliminary plan and move forward after that. So
that's the only pending, not yet approved subdivision before the
That
planning
is the
board
only
right
one,
now.
there's a whole bunch of rumors, I mean, every time,
Yeah, right,
every
right.
time a stake goes in the ground, there's a new subdivision, but, no, that's the only one that we have right now,
Right.
coming in, and so. And then our next regular meeting is June 8th, and we are following that in a week, we're gonna have another workshop where we are gonna take a look at the things in the comp plan that aren't in the ordinance, and some of them are minor, making sure there's a 100-foot buffer off a road that were in the comp plan, some of the ideas that were there, go through that in some detail, put the good ideas into the ordinance, subdivision control ordinance. And then there are folks out there who wanna have a discussion about slowing down, stopping whatever term you wanna use, in new development, and I don't think we're there yet. I mean, everybody will get a chance to say something, but I don't know that we, the planning board, are gonna take formal action on that as we're going forward, in the near term, and that's a big deal. That's, there's talk of everything from creating new zoning districts, to a whole bunch of stuff but we do wanna, I think, probably open up the opportunity for people to discuss, present their ideas, and there probably are some good ones out there. And then the other issue that we, for lack of a better term, have punted to the Conservation Commission is resource protection. And probably the better way, more professional way to say it is they have picked up the ball and are gonna move forward on the resource protection thing with Mr. Thebar's help, and trying to sort out phase 1, phase 2, and that is a big deal, as you know, and we broke it up into 2 phases for a reason. It didn't pass, and so they would like to take on trying to get a plan put together.
The only thing with that is they don't have any quasi-judicial authority the way that the planning board does, so I think it's perfectly reasonable to get a heavy consult from them, but it's ultimately up to the planning board.
It is indeed, and they have offered to take on putting ideas together, but at the end of the day, I believe it has to, we believe it has to come to us for public hearing,
Right.
and then.
Because the concern there is they obviously come at it from a certain point of
They
view.
do.
And that we need to make sure that that process stays balanced.
It is, yeah, it's not necessarily bad, but a couple of things that, George is going to work with them, and so his part-time time is getting eaten up fairly quickly with a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
But George is gonna take the good ideas he had, and present it at the, town meeting, and work with them and try to come up with that, so yes, and so, I don't know that we are the balance, but certainly there'll be plenty of opportunity, because there's folks who want more resource protection, there are some folks gonna be negatively impacted, perhaps by resource protection, and it's gotta be vetted through the town, the town, and let the public have their say and all that stuff. So this is not take the Conservation Commissions and just rubber stamp it.
Okay.
Do you have any idea whether that subdivision over there is in the aquifer?
It is right on the edge, and they're supposed to put it on the plans. It's right on the school's well area, and also right on the aquifer area. So yes, and that was part of our discussion at the sketch plan there, which is supposed to put it on the plan to show us where that is, and they know they have to notify the school if it's in the wellhead protection and so on and so forth, so. But I don't think it's on the edge, so I don't think the whole thing is, but there may be a part of it that is.
So is this cluster development covered by the ordinances we have today, or is there anything out of the ordinary that sticks out
At this point, they've not asked for a waiver, so they have to meet the normal subdivision rules and the cluster, so the cluster can, for instance, lot size is a good example, they can decrease the lot size, but have to create open space.
Right.
But the other stuff, road width, road frontage,
It's all the same.
they've not asked for a waiver on any of that stuff.
Thank you.
Great.
I'll finish up, look forward to
Thank you
working.
very much.
Thank you for taking this on.
Thank you.
All right. I see we're still on number 3, so I'll circle back. Chief, did you have anything you wanted to present tonight, or? You all set?
I am all set.
Okay.
Thank you.
So where all the cool people are.
Yeah. Let's see. Town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Several items of importance to bring to your attention. First of all, I'd like to introduce Mr. Alan Plummer to the board members. Alan, please stand up. The camera can pick up. Alan has accepted the position of Code Enforcement Officer, and I believe that he is in transition with both where he's leaving, and at the same time, he has spent time with Calvin, and he's also had opportunity to meet with George Tavaj, and I think that the team is rebuilding nicely.
Great, and we'll welcome. Glad to have you here.
Any questions about anything, or?
Not yet.
No,
I got answers.
Yeah. Awesome, thank you very much.
Mitch, can you, is there a blind?
I believe there is.
Thank you.
That is rude.
Weather.
Yeah, just this time of year.
Thank you.
It's good. It's cool.
Hopefully it won't suddenly come crashing down in the middle of some of these.
How's that?
Perfect, there you go.
I should have thought of that before.
No, I can see you now, you're not just in.
Okay.
In addition, I placed an ad in the 6 local weekly papers seeking applicants for the part-time deputy clerk position. If anyone is interested in that, it is part-time, and we ask that you go to our town's website, and you will see where the title of the position, you click on it, and all the application information is right there. We're accepting applications for the position of town manager and encourage experienced and qualified individuals to go to the town's website, click on Town Manager Notice, and get the rest of the details. Both Jessica and Janet continue their learning curve in their positions. Our counter service continues to be very busy, and we continue to be closed on Wednesdays, which are used to catch up on many of the items they must complete in order to get ready for the finished finalizing of the auditor, which we've pretty well got most of the auditor stuff done, but we haven't got any final draft back for review at this point. I also want to remind everyone that in between all of this, Janet, who is actually our deputy treasurer and handles financing, received a bill from one of our vendors, Down East Energy, and they provide propane. And she took it upon herself to call them up, and by the time they were done, they had gone from what the billing rate was down to $2.69.9 per gallon on the propane, and then offered us a 1-year contract at that price, and she took it.
They should be willing to negotiate my contract.
Stand in line.
Very
She
good.
did a very good job on behalf of the town.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Overly simplified project vision update. You have, I believe, a bigger narrative behind your agenda, but for the public, with the arrival of the new code enforcement officer, we are pulling together the cost estimates that will allow us to improve information to the town's website, as well as conduct meetings of the select board and planning board at the Eureka Center. Kimberly and Devin Garno are working to improve the updating of our website, as well as providing a report, and we're going to provide that report that will include hardware and software requirements, so that we can be again, as informative as possible to our public. And just the comments from John means that the customers are getting information a whole lot better. And I've made it a practice to post the draft of the forthcoming agendas through them onto the website, and then try to answer information and questions. Property casualty and liability insurance, on behalf of the town, I submitted the renewal to Maine Municipal Insurance Trust. And this should have been started months ago, but we had transitions that were going on in your town, and we appreciate the patience that the trust has provided so far. I've got to do the technological ones. That covers all of our IT related, and that's taking a little bit longer, but I'll get it to them as soon as possible. Just a comment for me, if the town is to use the first tranche or any part of it under ARPA funds for funding special projects, then a special town meeting should be called at the most reasonable time possible. The use of the funds through the warrant articles would be for specific projects that the staff has been working on and still needs to report to you in detail on. But as I was talking to our chair earlier today, we've got the vision project, which is the IT between this room and the room adjacent to us, and the possibility of definitely getting it into the Eureka House. That opens this up for additional service-oriented department planning, such as code enforcement or planning, whatever, but it effectively puts off the question, well, do you have enough space? Well, we have more space, and it puts the question further back as to what's it gonna look like in 20 years rather than in another 2 or 3 years. And so there's a cost benefit there, but in 20 years it's gonna cost that much more to expand, so you gotta be cautious with that. Both the Maine's Municipal Association's Legislative Policy Committee and the Spirit of America recommendations require the board's discussion and possible input and recommendations of local citizens who you believe might be interested. The deadlines for the MMA committee is June 22nd and the Spirit of America is June 30th. I'm also aware of the fact that you may need to appoint additional people coming forward, and I thought I had it here. I apologize. Well, if I do think of it, I will get it to you, but there are vacancies occurring, and we want to make sure that all of our committees and boards are full as appropriate. The Legislative Committee for MMA is a very important part of what affects municipalities going forward. And if there are citizenry or yourselves that you think might want to participate in that, now's the time to do it, and they're getting ready for next fall when the legislation is reintroduced, and it affects usually most communities.
Where can someone get more information on what that would entail in terms of the type of work and the time commitment and so on?
I can call the MMA and get that for you if you'd like. Generally, my recollection is they start meeting in the fall when both parts of the House and the Governor's Office start submitting legislation to the group and preparing for it. And then it gets very intense between September and December, so that the first session in the biennium starts in January. They're ready to start, and the committee has done so. And obviously, if it's an MMA committee, they're looking at laws, ordinances, things that may be of benefit or need to be changed to be of benefit to municipalities, among other things, or things that you might want to oppose and recommend opposition to that. And you also have to make a committee appointment to GPCOG. That's what it was. We deal with GPCOG, even though AvCOG is the county that we're
Right.
serviced by. GPCOG also works with us, and we've been invited to select 2 candidates for that legislative committee as well.
Is that a new committee for them?
I don't think it's legislative so much as it is general planning and policy making for GPCOG. So I thought that was pretty decent.
Any questions, comments, thoughts?
ComStar security breach follow-up is, that
Yes.
up?
I got a report from ComStar, who does the billing for EMS.
Oh,
And apparently, they got hacked, and they want to make sure that any of their customers, of which we are aware of that. They're sending out notices accordingly, and I did talk briefly with the chief, and ComStar handles everything. So, as far as we're concerned, we're okay, because I first thought maybe our computers had that information. It does not. We merely receive the receipts of the billing process and collection process coming forward. I also want to remind you about energy issues, and I want to talk briefly about that, if I may, Mr. Chairman. If you would take one of these and pass it on.
we're gonna have Janet negotiate the
Right?
diesel fuel.
I think you're absolutely right.
Take one just in case.
Like everybody else in America today, We are facing some very unique times, especially in the whole issue of energy. And for the town, propane, heating fuel, diesel, and gasoline, electricity, they're all part and parcel of what allow us to run. We took a look at just the largest of our departments where you see the greatest amount of consumption. And that's the Public Works Department. And what Calvin put together, and has done some phone work and everything, on the top part is his spreadsheet of what he planned for in the current budget that we're in now. As an example, heating fuel, he estimated 2,200 gallons. Diesel, 12,200 gallons. This will take us through December 31st of 2022. And gasoline, 1750. We know that the same amount, the same fuel types such as propane and diesel and gasoline are used in a much smaller quantity over at the fire department. And so we took the biggest one where there'd be the biggest impact at all. And Calvin went back to his budget, and the budget that he prepared for the year that we're in, he based heating fuel at $3.64 a gallon. And at the time that these were prepared, they were right on target. Diesel at $2.59 a gallon, and gasoline at $2.37 a gallon. As of May 10th, and even these numbers changed since a few days ago, we're now at a point where the same amount of units purchased is going to cost us far more. How much more was what we tried to narrow down. Allow me to explain. We also know that we've just paid off a bill to one of our providers, and we used the gallons from January 1st to April 30th to determine what was expended out of this budget year so far, and how much money remains in the budget till December 31st. That's the first constant. The second is what our best prices were, and I'll get into that fiasco in a second. But the best prices this minute, not this day, this minute, were based on $5.33 per gallon for heating fuel, diesel at $5.56, and gasoline at $3.92. To the far right of the spreadsheet that you have, you can see that they're fairly close between Rinaldi and Dead River. We're not asking to sign a contract, we're just using these comparative in the marketplace. By subtracting out what we have used thus far, how much we expect to use for the whole year, the difference is approximately, as was finalized, is not the $42,000, but if you go down, it's approximately $30,000 just for that department. And that's the largest department. And that's based on these prices that we now have. In effect, everyone in this community, and quite frankly the United States, is facing the same thing. We would like to set Janet up as our negotiator, but we will cautiously utilize her talents. How's that? In the final analysis, what I'm saying to you as your interim town manager is, yeah, we could go ahead and turn off a light here, we can shut off something there. We can pull the big hole up and say, no, we're going to wait another hour and let the snow come down deeper. We're not going to use this, we're going to use this as an alternative. The reality is, we are governed to a large degree by the expectations that we built into our community and the surrounding communities. And while black pavement is not necessarily the best policy, it's by far a more expensive policy to maintain in the wintertime, but it's also safer. So to you as the elected officials, we are in a situation where we've already had our town meeting. You've raised and appropriated the necessary dollars based on what we knew at that moment. The term raise means you can go back and raise the taxes to get the money to pay for the appropriation, what you approved as a town meeting. You can only do that once. You can go back for a special town meeting to appropriate, which means to authorize further expenditures. But the source of that expenditure has to be your undesignated fund balance. And as the chair has pointed out, and I agree with him, before we rush into it, you need to understand what is the balance of our undesignated fund balance. And if we were to have a special town meeting to handle things such as this, in addition to anything else that is out there, you need to know, from the auditor's perspective, are we still complying with generally accepted accounting principles, which is usually 8.33% of operating expenses each month, excluding school and county. So basically, 8, 16, 24%. So we will get that information for you, but in the meantime, you can see at the very bottom, our recommendation is not to lock in until June. We've already had those two dealers say, we're not gonna give contracts. They don't even know what's happening. And then you get into a very dicey situation that if you look at what they're predicting, there's $1 saving per gallon. It's not a lot. So then we're in a position of having to, and I don't want to use the term crapshoot, but I already have. You don't know what you're locking yourself into because the global situation or instability is what's forcing these issues going forward. And we're not the only ones. But we're a small enough community where it has a major impact, if not fiscally, but financially and morally, psychologically. What do we do? And everyone in this community is saying, how am I going to pay the electric bill? Am I going to pay the propane bill? Right now it's beautiful, but come December, it's not going to be pretty. These numbers only take you to December 31st. By then you'll have had developed with the budget committee a new budget, and you'll have to start the process based on the evidence at that time as to what your budgets are going to look like. But we want you to be fully aware that we're going to have a potential deficit in that department and in other similar line items through fire and through the town offices in Eureka Center, unless something else changes drastically. And right now, I'm not a betting person that that's going to happen.
Joe, hold on, Joe, go ahead. Yeah,
So, just, maybe I missed it, but, so how much have we expended so far out of the budget? Like, how much time do we really have to make this decision, I guess, is the question.
Actually, that's two good questions. The first is this only represents the Public Works Department. And originally he had planned 86,000. The previous year was 44,000. I'm sorry, the current year is 44,000. The original projection was 86,000 for 12 months.
Right.
We're only 8 months really, technically, when you think about it.
Yeah.
So it's from May 1st to December 31st, that's the first part, and that's a $30,000 deficit, just in Public Works.
All right. Does the state government have anything to say about this?
Yes, look carefully at the statutes, because as you all realize, this is new for you. There's a little-known statute that allows Public Works in the winter times to overexpend by 15%. And that effectively could be one way to deal with it, but I hate to think that that's how we're going to operate.
No, I wasn't even suggesting that.
No, but
No.
the option really is to report back to you the audited number for the undesignated fund balance. And then you have to decide for yourself, because it's a policy. How are you going to make up the difference? Are we going to have the public come back to the table and allow us to dip into that undesignated fund balance? Or are we going to play it very close to the vest and not know until December 30th how it turned out?
That will let us.
but if you do overspend that article for winter, the money comes from undesignated anyway, right? So other than the public aspect of the process, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
But that doesn't handle this building, Eureka, and the fire
Oh,
department.
that's true.
We're probably talking $680,000.
I just wanted to give you the biggest focus, but don't forget the other parts of that same picture. So, it really begs a question of, is there to be, and that's a policy issue, a special town meeting, and that's something that we've talked about. If you're gonna do it, don't wait till September. If you're gonna do it, don't do it just before the election in June. So it's gotta be somewhere between the election date and maybe July, and have certain things, as the chair has pointed out, these are priority, we need to get these resolved, and we'll put some other things on the back burner, wait till the fall and work on that. I mean, there are ways of splitting that, but you need to know what you're working with. And the undesignated fund balance becomes, for many communities, the sole answer to that.
Yeah, I get that, I get the rationale behind this, I think it's an important thing to try to forecast, and at this point right now, it's almost impossible. My only question on the sheet that you gave out, and Mitch, maybe you know this, and maybe you might have to ask Calvin, but is this correct that we budgeted diesel fuel at $2.59 a gallon? Is that number?
Those are the budgeted numbers that he used, because the chair had asked the question, what did Calvin build into the
No,
budget?
I understand that, I'm just looking at $2.59, we do our budgets, and I don't even think diesel price was at $2.59 by the end of this year, so that's why, that seems a little low.
It is right.
Layering on that, I think, I think this is, it's good that he put in that budget per gallon, but I would like to see what the 2021 actuals were. Like, how many gallons did we use divided by?
So,
No, go ahead, Calvin.
so last year's diesel price was $2.22 we were paying, and gasoline was $1.87, and heating fuel was $2.37. That's what we paid last year. And based on what the suppliers were telling me, I went with their recommendations on what to put in there for. I mean, this was pre Ukraine, Russia.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah, no, my question was really, because usually they're fairly close, I mean, heating and diesel oil are usually somewhere aligned. So if you formulate a budget, let's say you call them in, let's say November or December of last year, I would think if heating oil was that high, diesel hasn't been that low for a while, is all I'm getting at.
yeah, no, well, last year actually that's 30 cents higher than we paid last year. So
No, it's higher than what you pay, but what I'm saying is from a market price by the end of the year. I think I just looked it up, it was like $3.10 by the time we're in November last year, just for a rack price.
We will get you that information. Just as a quickie, in diesel, I converted the dollars expended since January 1 for diesel. We've used 3,091 gallons just in diesel. Gasoline, we've used 1,501 gallons. And heating oil, we use 809 gallons. I have to tell you, there's a question mark of how come we spent 1,501 gallons so far, but that's what the billing showed at $2,822 and at $1.88.
You got $17.50 budgeted for the.
Yeah, so that threw me off a little bit, but the others, diesel and heating, seem to be fairly right on target, but we can provide that information for you going forward.
What would be the downside of waiting until September to ask for more money if we decide to go that route for fuel? The market might settle down and be a little bit more predictable, it would be more of a known at that point. We're not a line item budget constrained operation, so what would be the downside, if any, of waiting until September to ask this question?
Not to be a smart aleck, when does the budget committee and the select board start the process of developing their next budget?
Well, the select board and the budget committee won't see it until after the first of the year.
Okay.
But the CIP process will start like in September.
I think the downside is when you look back in the rearview mirror and say, I wish we had done something. If we can't predict what's gonna happen.
But what would we not be able to do if we didn't ask this question until
Okay.
September.
In this particular case, everything continues to function except for one fact. If we find the price at the rack drops substantially because of some unique circumstances, we don't have the authority to go out, we have the authority to go out and ask for bids, but we have no authority to sign it if that contractor exceeds what the appropriations were authorized for. That'd be the only concern that I have. Because we'd be spending money we're not authorized to spend if it's above what's in the line item.
Is this
Not a
something?
line item in the article.
Or in the article.
So we would, the money is in the article, right?
It just has to be redivided into other areas. And what is it that you're willing to give up in the article to cover that?
If we ask the question and the town said no. But it's the same risk if we go and ask for the money now and the town says no. We still gotta buy the fuel, we're just gonna have to, you know, cut something else would have to come.
Yeah,
I'm assuming, Calvin, you know, because your budget is what, around, it's like 1.2 million, and we're talking $30,000 shortfall. You've already combed through your budget, and there's not $30,000 worth of, like, something you can defer to the next year, or anything like that?
Well, I mean, we trimmed it pretty hard already.
We did, I acknowledge that, absolutely, absolutely.
I mean,
I'm still asking the question.
yeah, and I'll do the best I can, but I really haven't been doing the code thing, haven't really had a chance to, I'm just coming up for air now, so I'm.
So, again, and I don't fault you for this, for the reasons you just stated, so you haven't really gone through your budget yet and say, can I find $30,000 here somewhere, if I had to?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and even if he hasn't, or has, either way, I mean, there's a good chance this town could say no, and we, by default, have to get that 30,000. So we have to go through it and see what recommendation you're gonna make to us to use anyway,
question,
before we
who's
even ask the
who's
question.
pulling the trigger?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I guess I'm kind of torn. I understand where you're coming from, but I'm leaning towards sort of where Kevin is. And I think we keep this as an agenda item, and it's something that I'd like to hear every meeting.
I'm tracking what's going
Yeah.
on.
But I don't know that I'd be prepared to present this to the town in June as you proposed with the other issues. I think I'd like to track it so that we can come back and say, this is what we're expecting. You know, I think we're in August, September, we have this idea. We've been working on it for 2, 3, 4 months now. I think that might be a better way to present it. That way, we're looking at all options and not, I sort of feel like we're rushing into it at this point.
And that becomes a decision you have to make. In the final analysis, I use the term death by 1,000 cuts. We're not quite sure which cut is gonna be the one.
So what other things other than fuel and other than, say, upgrades on materials are we looking at? Or I should say materials, that would be the other thing that would hit the Public Works Department. Like, so this is what, 2.5% of his budget or thereabouts. What other things might come up other than fuel that could cause us grief? Everything, it comes to mind to me right away. Yeah, but, you know, we have a lot of projects on the books, right, that are coming up, paving, what have you, that are going to hit, and it's all oil-based when you talk paving. Are there other things that we need to consider as a, I'll say a lump, a bigger picture?
In Public Works or in the totality of?
Well, the totality of the town, thinking Public Works in general, just because we're kind of picking on Calvin, you know, how can you trim 2.5% out of
He's the
his
tall
budget?
guy in the
Yeah,
room,
exactly,
right? So you
exactly.
get,
But,
he's the
but
lightning
I
rod.
mean, everybody is gonna feel this eventually, the town is gonna feel this eventually from a number of different areas.
Yeah. To your question specifically, the use of Eureka for the meeting house,
Mhm.
your meetings, planning board meetings, and all other meetings, coupled with the IT connectivity is one issue right there. The second issue is the fact that half of your building here does not have heating and cooling. Both of those units were installed at the same time. One would begin to speculate how long before the other unit, which was cranked up high to offset the other, is going to last.
Right, yeah.
But our fire chief has also indicated an opportunity with regards to heat pump in certain areas of his building. So that combination becomes another issue for appropriations / alternative funding if you decide to use capital funds that are not generated at the local level. So that's two projects right there. And what happens if we don't do those projects? Then we are potentially squeezing full-time code enforcement into an already small room, and I'm gonna say, we're moving all of these desks over here, and his office is gonna be over here. I mean, there are ways of trying to ameliorate that hardship. But those are probably the big ones that I'm thinking of at the moment, and you have to decide what's the appetite? How much can the public bear, who are also facing the exact same thing? But I can tell you, standing at that desk, listening to what's going on, the ladies that's why we're closed on Wednesdays. We're trying to catch up and we can't. We still don't have the audit back because it was delayed. And it's those kinds of things that, in and of themselves, if they were the only one thing, you don't pay attention to them. But there are several of those little things beginning to crop up. And next winter is not the time to put someone up in the attic and say, can you fix it now?
Yeah,
No.
That by a thousand cuts, so I get it.
In the fall,
Josh, do you have something?
it's hot there.
No, I'm not.
Oh, I thought you were about to say something. Todd, did you have something?
I would also be concerned about the price of electricity.
All energy.
If we're gonna put in more heat pumps, it's gonna cost more money.
Right, it's gonna hit you one way or another.
Yeah.
I think that, some of the points that were just made actually argue towards holding off to ask, because then we will have a better idea what we might need to ask for.
Right.
I think of the handful of things that Mitch has brought up, that we've talked about in the past, that we think are candidates for potential, special town meeting vote, really the only, mission critical, we gotta do something sooner rather than later, is the HVAC stuff. And that I could envision a special town meeting fairly soon, something close to the timeline that Mitch put out. And then perhaps even, a second special town meeting in September for some of the other ideas we have, like if there's, IT expense to hook up Eureka, or, other things that are important and we wanna get them done, but they weren't necessarily like, we gotta do this now or else we're not gonna have heat in the building, come winter. That's, plus the other thing there is we don't wanna lose sight of the clear public sentiment we heard about people wanting input on how we're gonna spend the ARPA money. So I think we can manage the communication and make a good case of understood, we're gonna have a robust public input process on, how we're gonna spend the vast majority of these ARPA funds, but we need to put an HVAC system in the town office now. And we have an opportunity to pay for that with these ARPA funds. So we're just gonna call a meeting, we'll have a discussion and we'll do it. Sorry we didn't have time to do a big, public hearing on that one question, but on the vast majority of the remainder, we can go through that process, and doing another meeting in September would give us time to do that.
And so you said in your notes, you wanted to approve a warrant article at our next meeting.
Well, that's what I said, that's gonna be, we were talking about that before the meeting, and we don't have actual bids and
That's-
quotes
that
to
was my-
review
that was-
yet.
That was my next question. Because I'm not gonna be here on the 24th, and I would like to see.
I'm
it
not
on-
either, actually, so to come to think of it, so we may have to
So-
see if we're even gonna have a quorum that day, but.
So that's my, okay.
Yeah.
That was my next question, thank you.
We will, what I'm hearing is that there is sympathy and empathy for the mission-critical HVAC.
And I would wrap the fire department in that, you know,
Because
it's a
that's
package deal.
You get it, you usually get better pricing that way. And then come September, and actually through the summer and into September, have the discussions on some of the other issues going forward.
And there's nothing that stops us from talking about these other issues at the special town meeting, the first special town meeting, right?
No, right.
So I think that would be important to discuss at that time.
Well, actually, we would actually have to put an article on the warrant to allow for that discussion. Because typically you can only talk about what there's an article
Yeah,
on.
right, but there's nothing that, and I would certainly push for that, because I think it's important to
That's a good
raise
idea.
that.
That's a good idea, you could tack on a little public hearing onto that, and that's a really good idea.
And just thinking back to what we were talking about earlier, is to maybe prep some subjects or some of the items that we voted in already, what might be something that can be moved to the right, to hold off, to offset some of the funding. Not that I wanna do that, but it might be necessary, depending on, you know, everybody, you know, again, back to the public, everybody, we all are gonna have this problem. It's gonna hurt really bad this year, is what it comes down to. So we ought to start thinking about what could go to the right, you know, without having services affected. You know, I don't wanna take a plow truck off the road, I don't wanna not respond to something. That's just a non-starter in my mind. You know, I think we do as a town expect certain services and want the same level of service, or better, of course. But you know, some things might be moved to the right comfortably without it affecting the long-term goals.
I need to go back to the statute, because the statute on the 15% rule for public works
Yeah.
pertains to the winter budget only, not the total budget.
Right.
So if people
Right,
are doing
the
the math
section.
and they're saying, well, I got 1.2 million times, that's another 100, no.
Yeah.
Strictly the winter budget.
Right.
Yeah.
But we don't have a separate winter fuel budget or a winter
No,
whatever,
of course
so.
we don't, so.
But I think Joe's point is a good one, in that regardless of whether we make the decision at some point to ask to use some undesignated funds, the town could say no to that, even if we decide to ask for it. So every department head should be projecting what the potential exposure is, and should have a contingency plan for how they're going to meet that if there is no more money coming.
Right.
You know, like if we don't, how are we gonna do this?
Right, is
You
there
know.
a couple roads we can push to the right, or something that can.
Yeah, I mean, that's-
Again, I'm picking on Calvin, but I'm just thinking of items that cost a lot that you might be able to slide,
Yeah.
or something of that nature.
Yeah, cause I think,
Just
you
to
know,
offset
our
a little
first
bit.
reflex shouldn't be to go ask for more money. And even though it's not a tax assessment, it's still spending the town's money if we use undesignated.
And you have to replenish it.
Yeah, exactly,
Some point
right,
still.
right.
Right,
Still
it's
assessment.
doing the due diligence on looking hard at the budget again, and say, okay,
So that's why I think, you know, I think waiting until September, and nothing magical in September, could be August, could be October, you know, but later, when we know more and have a clearer picture of what our exposure might be, you know.
Yeah. At least to present it, and then let everybody make an educated decision.
Yeah, right. So,
Special town meetings, better off not in the summer.
yeah, right, well, although I think
found that.
we're looking at one in early summer if we wanna get approval
Early.
to do
Early summer,
HVAC, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause I think-
July and August.
Yeah.
Every yield a big turnout, no matter really, this is the
It
town.
should be the 2 middle weekends of June, otherwise, once July 4th bell rings,
Yeah.
you've lost.
Lost July.
And then you've got
So
15 and
that's
20 people making a decision for 4,100.
Yeah.
So that means we need, and I think there's been some work on this already, but one thing that we should get as soon as possible are actual proposals and bids on the work to be done for the HVAC.
Lock that in.
That's probably, the next step on that, I would think.
When you're getting proposals these days, what kind of time limit are they adding, are they putting on there for the proposal? Like, sign up by next week, or is it a 30-day or 60-day type?
I wish I could say, we haven't gotten proposals in, so
Yeah.
but I suspect you're
That's what-
absolutely right.
Right, disclaimer on the bottom.
Really depends on what it
So,
is.
Yeah.
and again, under the heading of contingency, so like, we know that we have to do something with HVAC in this building.
Yeah, that's,
Chief, I'm not sure, I know we wanna take advantage of the efficiencies and stuff, but is the situation at the firehouse, is that also like a must, like, whatever?
So
Go ahead.
that's your decision. It is a heating and cooling facility.
Yeah,
It's the only facility in town for that.
yeah.
It's unification for the school, and we have no cooling.
okay, so where I was.
So
going
we
with-
have one window unit and a floor, just to try to.
Yeah, where I was, yeah, I think it would be too. Where I was going with that is, again, thinking about contingencies, like, if we were faced with some sort of a time thing, then, like, do we even have enough money in our municipal capital account, ARPA aside, if we had to do something with HVAC? I think there's money in municipal capital account that could cover that. And it only takes a board vote to spend that money, we don't have to go to the town for that. So, I think that can take, that can take a little bit of the time crunch out, so knowing that if we had to commit, like, let's say, if we had to commit, like, let's say, in 2 weeks, whatever, say, okay, this is your price, if you sign the contract by X.
Yeah.
You sign the contract, knowing that you got enough money in the capital, account if you need to, but it gives you time to go to voters and ask for permission to use ARPA funds, so you don't have to tap into that account.
Yep.
But if you have to, because you gotta do the work, then you have the funds to cover it.
Yep.
So,
I agree.
There is one angle that I'm questioning, because I don't have the answer. You've had a lot more experience with ARPA than I have with recent. ARPA cannot replace funds that were raised by taxes or would be raised by taxes to cover something. If your capital reserve had been funded by warrant articles,
which it would have been.
and you take the money and you use it for these important factors, these capital improvements to the building, etc. I would raise the question, can you really do that with ARPA funds? Because the ARPA funds are technically replacing.
I agree, and I think it's a timing thing, so the scenario I laid out is you sign the contract knowing that one way or the other, you have the money to do the work. It might come out of your capital account, or it might be ARPA.
As long as you realize that.
Right, but the preference is to get approval to use ARPA funds before you have to take it out of the capital account.
I think that's a good two-step approach.
Right.
So do you have a list of companies that can do this job?
We will get one real quick.
There's been some work done on this
Yeah.
already. I mean, Kathy did do some work on that, so there's some stuff out there.
And those are all materials that are part of the supply chain.
That's why I think, even if we move on this, like, that's why I think we need to move forward, even if we don't have the actual answer to the ARPA question yet, because.
Get that out of the way.
Right.
You have no choice.
Heat pumps and furnaces haven't been that bad this year. I've replaced quite a few.
Well,
I've been long business.
the chief has done some investigative work on this as
Yeah,
well,
they haven't been bad.
and he's got at least one brand that seems to have a fairly constant supply chain.
His supply chain hasn't. That was one question, like, can you get it?
Yeah.
Not only can you do the work, but can you get it?
Right.
And also, you're all experts and business owners, you're getting into the heating or actually cooling season, so you either get it early or now you're just on a waiting list.
Yeah.
Again, depending on temperatures and where we're
I
at with
think,
that.
for a multitude of reasons, we need to start moving forward on this.
But the final comment here is, you've had the public discussion. You've started it, it comes as no surprise, and it should not be a surprise for anyone.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been talking about that heating system for a while.
And now actually, I wish I had had the time to put something together, but we're gonna have to we'll get the specs, and we'll actually drive them or mail them to the vendors and see what we come up with. And hopefully by the first meeting in June, you will have something before you.
One thing I want to throw out there, the chief emailed about potential opportunity, a grant for generator replacement, is that right? And we know you can't use ARPA or any other federal fund as your matching funds for a grant, whether it's ARPA or anything else. But I believe, I don't think we put any money in it this year, but I believe we have a matching funds grant account that has money in it. So we would need to have Gina or whatever look and treat. I'm pretty sure that we have a matching grant fund matching account. I don't think there's a ton of money in it. I'm pretty sure it's over 10,000. Because every once in a while there's a warrant to put some money into it. So we should check and see if we actually have an account with some money in it, and then we can move forward on that grant application for the generator.
Okay. Other than that, the tax lien notices will be going out over the next few weeks. I think we have to do it by the end of May, and we will have them out there in timely fashion.
One question on Spirit of America recommendations. Can we get like an input sheet on that as well? Like, I know we've done something in the past on that, but I think, did we have that? Was that in the packet or?
No, it came to me by an email.
Like it's something we've done in the past. I know like,
You did last year.
with what?
I believe we did that last year.
I thought we skipped a year or two because
Really?
of COVID.
It's been a while since we've done it.
Yeah. Like I think, like we had some people from the AMVets got it, you know, I think in 2019, I believe was the last one we presented before COVID. So just good to know, like what is it, what's the criteria, who should we, like, what should we be considering in terms of recommending?
We will make copies of the email that went to Jessica, and we'll get it.
Oh, great, yeah, you can just forward that to the board members and that'd be
My
great.
last item under the manager's report, I'm sorry to report that lack of volunteers, there will be no memorial parade. Just couldn't pull it off.
Okay.
On that same subject matter, Lisbon is having a parade, Freeport's having a parade. We've been invited as the Durham Fire Department to provide an engine and crew in Freeport. So if town members want to be represented and go to a important Memorial Day parade, we will have representation in Freeport.
That'd be good to put in the newsletter, upcoming, that that's happening.
Except with diesel prices, maybe we'll push it, but we'll still be there.
Roll, shut it off.
Well, we do know from experience that you gotta run those things, right? You can't just let them
Well, that's-
sit idle.
That costs more.
That's the
Right,
catch
it costs more
22.
money.
Calvin, one question. The projects on Swamp Road and Quaker Meeting House Road, have we done anything?
Engineering is working on that. Army Corps of Engineers has stepped in and
Oh,
changed
good,
a
good,
bunch of
good.
rules, so
Army Corps.
we're working on it. We should have an update for you in the next meeting.
Yeah, uh-huh,
Oh, these are the culverts, you have it.
right, Army Corps is in
That'll go fast.
Yeah. Okay. All right, any other questions for Mitch?
Thank you.
All right, public comment. Nobody's here for public comment this week.
I got a quick public comment.
Oh,
How about that? Can I stay right here?
Sure.
Thank you.
I
This was
can't
a-
wait to hear this.
Hey, no, it's not a big deal, and I probably should have, I had actually talked to George about it the other day, and it's really, it's just a quick public comment about trash, because I had a couple people reach out to me this week.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up later too, good.
And myself included, there seems to be a different, maybe a regime change or something in the local pickup. So like a standard barrel like we advertise out here from Pine Tree, if you fill that up, in the past, that was gone. Now they're selecting maybe 2 or 3 bags depending upon their weight, and they're leaving everything else with a nice green note on it. Or if you forgot your tag, or if God forbid your tag blew off, they'll just leave your trash now. So I don't know what transpired that all of a sudden this is their new policy, but I think people should be aware that that's their new policy, if in fact it is, or if it's just some rogue trash folks running around that are now picking up.
No, well, I guess, I was gonna bring that up too, and I sent an email to Mitch, and he's gonna call into Casella.
Already done.
Have they returned your call?
They haven't returned the
Okay,
call.
yeah.
It's already into Casella.
But I do wanna clarify, it's not Casella's policy, it is technically what our policy is.
It's been.
Yeah, no question,
And
that's
I
the
don't-
policy, but it's just, now it's being maybe more
Oh, yeah.
enforced than it has in the past, and it just transpired this week.
I agree, yes, it was like, all of a sudden there was like some new guys and
Right.
probably in training, and here's Durham's policy, and they're just following the,
Correct.
so what's very true right now is that, our policy and our citizen expectation and long-time enforcement are not aligned, right? Not even close.
Right.
So I think we will probably need to provide some, some clarification to Casella on, kind of, what we expect in terms of enforcement or not.
I'm not.
The person I got in touch with is getting a hold of the first line supervisor who handles the routes.
Okay.
And I want to ask those questions, but you help clarify it. Because I thought those were are those contractual policies, or
No.
they just simply complied with your policy?
Well,
And now we need to say, no, that's our policy, and you're looking to change that.
no, I think we do a tag system, and the
Yeah.
tags are for basically up to 25 pounds. And that could be on a single bag, it could be on a barrel that has like 3 or 4 kitchen bags in it.
Right.
It's not a tag per bag, no matter what size the bag is, it's definitely not that.
But you can have 10 25-pound bags.
Yep, if you wanna buy the tags, so every household in Durham is eligible, not everybody takes them, but is eligible for 26 tags a year. If you need more than that, you buy them for $3 each here at the town office. And the theory behind that is that if you generate more trash, you should pay more.
Pay as you throw, modified.
Right,
Encouraged.
so, but the problem is, as Rich pointed out, the enforcement has not really been there. But we have to be careful about, we can't just say, don't enforce it. Because the town voted for that system and the principle of people that generating more trash using more tags. So I think what we have to make sure they understand is that the 25-pound, per tag thing. And then I think we also want to say, probably like, we don't want trash being left behind unless somebody is like a habitual offender,
Yeah, and I think also though, I think one thing to note, I mean, I agree with Kevin, and it's really not been enforced, especially to the level that we've seen in the past week. But in the past, I understood it even more so why they would enforce it, because we were basically paying a set price, correct me if I'm wrong. And then a couple of years ago, we went to a scaled price that actually can be ratcheted up. So why they would do that now when they would actually make more money and not in the past doesn't make any sense to me.
That was a question I actually.
I think it's always been a tonnage thing, though. I think it just became more visible when the recycling.
I just don't remember it being a floating target per se from a budget standpoint. We used to have one specific budget plus dumpy days.
We have a cap.
Right, and then if we went over that, it was just a cap, but we I think it was 2.5 years
It was the
ago.
last contract.
Yeah,
When
it
recycling went berserk.
Correct, it went to more of
So
a,
whatever's scaled at the time,
to a scale, correct, for the year. Because they gave us what we typically use,
Yeah.
and that's what they based the contract, and anything plus or minus would be at a higher rate. Because of the recycling component of it is no longer, which is weird, because they'll take your recycling, you can put garage full of recycling.
It actually costs the town more per ton
Right.
recycling than regular trash.
Yeah, which is kind of weird, so.
I've already got the call in,
Yeah.
as the chair said, but this is good information, because at this point, we have a picture of someone who has a barrel, and in the barrel is a bag with a tag. And
I didn't send you that picture, but I was one of those folks.
And so I'm wondering if they turned around and said, well, we pulled 3 bags out, that's 75 pounds worth. That whole container had more than 25 pounds. They're lucky we took 3 and not 4 bags.
You know, and I get it, because there
Workers'
was like
comp
people, like Kevin said, the word habitual, that probably up until last week haven't been putting tags on their trash since
Getting
forever.
away with, yeah.
And now they're having to, which is great, but the fact that you just draw a hard line in the sand in 1 week is what the issue I
Right,
have.
and I think that, yeah,
That's the only issue. I have no problem with the enforcement, I have no problem with the weight limits, I have no problem with that. It's just when you don't forewarn anybody and then you just cut off and basically,
that's.
we got trash all over the town and people's stuff isn't getting picked up. That's my problem.
As we address this, it'll be, I think we need to get what they're doing on the street and people's expectations aligned.
Right.
So there might be, say, hey, okay, just remind everybody, this is the policy, this was what town voters approved, so this is the direction that we're giving Casella, so you might find that you need to use more tags than you have in the past, because they are gonna be a little bit more aware, right?
Is it the board's intent that the written policies that you have created over time, no container should be any greater than 25 pounds, which I think is fair because of workers' comp injury.
Yeah.
But regardless of the number that you have out in the front yard, they all must be tagged. And if it's a container, a rigid container, or whether it be a bag, it has to have a tag on it. Is that your intent? Because if I give them a gray area, we're gonna be back here again in another few weeks, having another discussion. And I wanna be very clear.
I think
I
obviously the
think
whole
that's-
thing's a gray area, I don't think we can be.
I think the policy is pretty clear though, I thought, and I've had run-ins with Casella twice in 3 months. One time they said, screw you, and left my trash there for an extra week. And then I filled up the bag, it was way more than 25 pounds, they took it all the next week. And then the second time I called, they sent somebody out that afternoon. But I think, the rules are out by 7 AM, 25 pounds in a container, I don't know how they weigh them. And that's
That's the
issue.
ambiguous part, and that's why.
That's the issue I have is
Even your 7 AM thing, I mean, it used to be out by 7 AM, they used to come habitually at a specific time, they change people, now that, my trash gets picked up at 6:30. 6:45,
So-
and I'm right around the corner from you, so I can't imagine.
The most difficult task for anybody is to take the policymaker's decision and then fuzzy it up a little bit for the people who have to implement it.
there's a sheet out in the hallway, and I think
So
it's,
it's your intent to follow the policy that you set. That's all I need to know, because if that's what you want, then I'm gonna say, okay, boys and girls who are doing the pickup, how lenient do you wanna be? Because
If
this
the
is
policy gets muddy, is like, for example, we advertise them right there, you got 2 Casella dumpsters, which they don't have a work comp issue, because they can put it on their truck and it lifts it for them.
Yes.
So some people have those. Now, that weight limit of trying to figure out, that barrel alone probably weighs close to 20 pounds. So to try to figure out for the layperson, like, how much trash do I got in here? When for at least this 18 years I've been living here, you put something in there, you put a tag on it, they would take it in the past.
I'm on our website right now, and it's not the actual policy, but there is a statement here, it says, the maximum weight allowance is 25 pounds per trash bag or trash can. A standard 32-gallon trash can usually holds 3 typical 13-gallon kitchen garbage bags. So, use that as like your benchmark. Like, if you've got a 32-gallon, which is your, again, standard, and that thing's full, I think you call that 25 pounds. Unless you're like filling it with, you know,
Diapers?
a whole, that's where it's stack of
I
like,
gave her mine.
books or something like that, you know, but if
Looking at
it's
some of the feedback.
typical
like heavy
household
diapers
term.
in there.
But the book, yeah, and again, you know, recycling is unlimited, right, so people can put all the recycling out that they want.
Yeah, but the problem with that was now people are putting trash into their recycling and that goes, you know what I mean?
And the other issue is, I've got 3 bags, material, no issue of recycling, it's trash. And roughly 13 pounds a bag. So I put all 3 in, technically they're saying it's 39 pounds, so they take the 2 bags and leave the last one.
That's what happened, that's what recently is happening, that never
But if they
transpired.
left the
We don't
bag
want that.
outside, put the 2 bags inside,
That's why I don't, that's why when you ask that question, like how strict, I just want it to be like, use good, decent judgment. Like, you can tell if somebody's got one of those containers and it's heaped over like it's, you know, the Bronx or something, like every trash can out there, then I get it, leave it, but.
Especially going into the summer.
Yeah.
We do not want trash left behind.
No.
That'll create more problems than
raccoon.
running down a habitual offender with their tags. So,
I'll do the best I
Just
can in the
have them
gray
grab the
area.
trash. Just have them grab the trash. You gotta stick around and grab the trash. If it doesn't have a sticker on it, they get one warning next week, they don't have a sticker.
Kitty.
Unfortunately, there's.
And maybe we ought to modify to include that as really
yeah,
what you're saying.
but that'll, well, the tag system was approved and voted at town meeting. So that takes a town meeting to change it.
To buy the tags. But what I'm suggesting is, the working policy for the contractor is, if they put in more than 2 tag bags into a barrel, then maybe the public needs to realize that they need to put only 2 bags that are tagged in the barrel, and put the rest of the tags on the
Well,
outside.
the bags won't be individually tagged, the barrel, somebody, like, what I do is,
Tag the barrel.
you fill the barrel and you tag the barrel.
That's what I.
Yeah.
Or I
think that's
wrap it on the
majority.
top bag that's in the barrel.
But some people push it down so they can get as much into that, and I understand that, and that may be the issue that I just need.
I'm not saying it's not the issue, I'm not saying it is the issue, all I'm saying is there's been a shift in the past week that we didn't have all these issues. I mean, I probably, just in my neighborhood alone, I had 3-4 people come up to me. Baseball, 3-4 people come up to me. This past week was an issue. That's all I'm saying.
This one was definitely not just a Facebook issue. This one, people actually called on this
Yes,
one.
people called on this.
Which
Well,
is,
that's good that they're calling and letting you know firsthand, you're the elected officials. I just, to me, I know nothing is ever black and white. but-
No, and it's not, the policy's not that way. It's, I agree with you.
So ask
every
Patrick
town
where
in the
this came
state has issues with whatever their trash program is.
Mhm.
Like special bags or whatever. Alright, so,
I will report back.
great, thank you.
We'd like to know how many, do a lot of people call them directly as well, if they have an idea?
I first heard of it through the grapevine,
Yeah,
because it came out by people who produced that information, that's not on, it's a blog or something. I don't,
I was just curious how much, you know, we may have heard some of it, but they may have heard a lot more, a lot less.
the gentleman I called said, oh, Rick, you guys in Durham are great to deal with and everything, this is the first I'm hearing of this.
I know a few people did call them. I can't obviously tell you how many people, but I know there was some people that made some phone
Well,
calls,
we'll see
especially
what-
this past week. We have in the past, because we used to direct people, hey, you had a problem with your, you know, rather than the town manager dealing with it, hey, why don't you, at least that was what this board had told
Yeah,
previous.
yeah, exactly.
Why don't you feel free to give them the number to Casella and have them.
Let me find out from their perspective what has brought that change about and why.
Yeah.
It may be more
Yes,
discussion.
just this,
I
I don't
think
know.
it's just new hires.
It's tough.
It's this new hire following what he read in the policy book on the front, you know, it's.
Along those same lines, if you have a new code officer, I would take the soft line starting out, just so you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, exactly.
Good point. Good point.
That's the end of my short report.
Hey, I'm sorry about my 3-minute overture there. I didn't expect this big of a dialogue to come out of that, but,
Alright, any other public comments? Okay. Alright, town manager search update.
We have 3 applications that came through and had nothing in the last 5 business days. I am checking the ZipRecruiter to see if we can set up a similar, people go to that, then they go to our website, and you know the rest of the story. Lisbon is still having difficulties getting a town manager, and it's happening throughout the whole state itself. It's not only at the town management level. Town clerks are becoming a premium. Town finance people are becoming a premium. And private sector is in the position of offering far more perks and dollars than we could ever think of offering. But it's, and quite frankly, it's an employee opportunity. People are really seeing this as opposed to the employer.
It's definitely an employee market, there's
Yeah.
no question about it,
Yeah.
but, thank you. As far as our nominees for our hiring, was everybody on board and accepted that?
We've heard nothing negative, and everyone should have gotten our letter of yes, you're in, or no, you're not. I made sure that happened that same week, that letter went out.
So nobody said, hey, I
No,
changed my mind or anything like that?
not that I'm aware of. They haven't told me or the ladies up front. Usually I hear about it if the ladies get it.
Thank you.
So are we planning anything about with those 3 applications?
At this point,
No.
no. I think if you're gonna meet, you have at least 6 or 9 applications in hand to look at to make it worthwhile for yourselves and the citizens who are part of that process.
I think, I don't disagree with you, but in today's market, you may never get 6 or 9. So, I mean, if you have anything that's worth reviewing, leave one out of the 3, it may behoove you to do so, because you might not meet those numbers like you might have in the past.
You may not wanna lose that person either.
Well, you might, I don't know if, I don't, obviously, I don't know if they're viable candidates, but
Yeah.
if you do at least have one viable candidate, I would shake the bush. That's all I'm
At
getting at.
this point, if you would like, is there a date that you'd like to meet? I'll get the other citizen members and we'll do that and take full advantage and use it as a trial run.
I don't even, I mean, I would think that even if you dispersed their resumes or interest to that particular committee and said, what do you guys think, do you wanna convene, then go from that standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, there might be some value in, like, let's say for the sake of argument, maybe one of those 3 is like really great. And I wouldn't wanna, especially in the current environment, potentially lose that candidate because we're waiting around for other, for a certain number of candidates. I mean, there's nothing that says we have to hire somebody out of that pool of 3. So you could, run them by the committee and see what they think. They're gonna do the yes, no, maybe thing. They might say, you know what, we don't see anybody here that we think is worthy of going on, or they might say, you know what, we think this one has potential, we should talk further with that one. And,
Given that scenario, I would offer a date or dates for you to consider, but I would not wanna make copies and have those floating around outside of this building.
and I'm just throwing that idea out, I don't know.
But
if
I
if
think,
you
I
wanna-
understand the rationale and I agree with it. So is Wednesday the 25th or Thursday the 26th of May a good night for the 3 who are the initial screeners?
So I fly back on the 25th.
So the 26th
I should
would
be,
be better
I
for you.
should be back in the morning, but
Okay, so the Thursday the 26th, how does that sound? And we might have to do a Zoom for 2 of the 3.
It's fine.
We have to set that up. But,
Would we do that from our homes, or would we do
well,
that
at this
here?
point, I think I would propose to you, I'll bring the 3 applications in. You look at them, and if we want to do something, we can then
Right, that's
set it
the
up.
first
after
step,
that.
right? I mean, that's.
Yeah, no, that's
That's right,
fine.
you do
That's
the
fine.
initial
Okay.
screen.
All right, yep, that's good.
And actually, the initial screen is just the 3 citizens and you, right? Although with only 3, I might expand that.
Yeah.
I'd like to have the 3 select board members.
Yeah.
The more fingerprints on it in this room, the better.
Yeah.
So what time do you wanna do that? The 26th?
What's convenient for you folks? Dinner time at 6:30?
6:30?
I think it's good to set that in, because that's still 2 weeks away. So you set that as like an initial review, and you might get some more applications between now and then that you could also throw into the mix. You know, so it's good to put a date out there, at least start reviewing.
May 26th. Call the time. I'm flexible at this point. I want to work around
6:30?
6:30 is fine. Yeah, the 6:30 is fine.
6:30.
Yeah, do regular time, yep.
Very good.
Unless somebody wants to do it earlier, it's fine too, but.
So you'll round up the committee members and.
We'll be done. I'll do that
Great.
next week,
Okay.
early next week.
All right. Number 7, would entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Motion to accept the consent agenda as written.
One second.
You, Todd second. Okay, all in favor? We have 5-0. Okay, upcoming meetings and town news. Actually, well, we just kind of
You just took care of it.
blew number 8 out of the water. So we think the first town manager hiring committee meeting will be May 26th
Yes.
at 6:30 PM here at the town office for an initial review of whatever applications we have at that point. And
And that's a 9-member panel,
yeah, I think that's,
9 plus 1.
plus 1.
since it's only 3, if it grows beyond that, you judgment call. You know, if it gets, if there's a big pile that we.
I just don't want 1,000 applications that don't have relevance either.
Right.
It doesn't do any good.
Right. Alright, so we have, number 9 is oaths of office, this is like wave 3, and tonight we have the oaths, for, Janet Bowie as interim tax collector, for our new code enforcement officer, for the chief and the roles that he fills, animal control, and, Eureka Center Committee. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the oaths as presented.
So moved.
Josh moves,
Second.
Joe seconds, all in favor? 5-0. Good. Everybody needs to sign all those, sign party tonight. We have
2 matters? 2 matters in executive session. One deals with workers' compensation, the other employment compensation.
Alright, I'm gonna move us
And
into,
that's personnel.
move on into executive session, for personnel discussion pursuant to MRS 4056A.
Second.
Rich seconds, all in favor? Okay, we are in executive